What is happening with Alabama? Most recently, you probably saw them lose to Tennessee. That was not a shock around here. We predicted them to lose. I told you going into the game, I thought Bama was going to lose. Then I thought that they were going to regroup, and I thought that they would eventually end up winning the SEC championship. And all of that's obviously still on the table. But I've got some sound. We're going to wait a few minutes to play it. But I think most Alabama fans have heard it. I don't know if the rest of the country has heard it. It is stunning to me, some of the stuff that's being said. Not by fans. I mean the head coach at Alabama and some players on that team about last week's game. So we'll get to that in a second. Here's what I'm not going to traffic in tonight. I'm not going to do the whole cast an indictment on a team or a program based on one game. I'm not doing the Bama's done thing. I'm not doing that, only because I need to remind you, many of you, hundreds of thousands of people who now watch or listen to this show are kind of new, so you don't know some of the analogies I've used in the past. One of the classics, paper pop worthy metaphors from Meemaw back in the day was you need to respond at the speed of honey, not at the speed of water. And that's the same way you need to really cast judgment on these programs. You cannot tell over the span of one game what the fate of a program is going to be and the trajectory of a program is. It just doesn't work that way. Meemaw always said, you turn that plate sideways. Look at how fast the drop of water falls off. You don't want to be the drop of water. That just makes you look like an idiot down the road. You want to be the drop of honey. It's still headed south. It's just headed south a lot slower. So in other words, if you see several results piled on top of each other that indicate the same thing, it's like this huge, bright, blinking red caution light, then you can start to be concerned. Not one game. So I'm not in that camp. I know a lot of people are, and I know that it gets a lot of attention, and we could traffic in that. You haven't seen clickbait until you see me go clickbait. I could go clickbait on this. We're not doing that. But what I am going to do is be pretty fair about this. And so I just want to ask you guys, you know, if let's say the worst were happening at Alabama, okay? So let's just entertain the madness out there for a couple of seconds. If the absolute worst were happening, let's just say everything about that program had been lost. I'm talking about 100% of the mojo. It would kind of be equivalent to what a commercial airliner at 35,000 feet would do, going about 550 miles an hour ground speed, if both engines failed. What happens to a plane at 35K? If both engines fail, does it just go, does it fall straight down to the ground? Of course it doesn't. Because the speed it's built up and the altitude it's built up determines that it's going to glide for a long time, and that's even if everything has failed. The program at Bama, and some of these major programs, if this were happening to Ryan Day, if this were happening to Dabo, even if everything went wrong, guys, it would take a while for them to come crashing back to earth because that's the value in the equity you've built to get to that point. So imagine if only 20% of the program is faulty, how hard it is to spot the difference week to week, game to game. So anyone who's watching Tennessee run all over Bama, ugly though it may have been, and thinking to themselves, that's it, go ahead, get the gravestone ready. We're not doing that, okay? I think anyone who's ever trafficked in that, as long as Nick Saban's there, has learned their lesson. Please don't do that again. But they played a way against Tennessee the other night. That's not the way they have to play. They tried a way. It's failed spectacularly. They tried a way. I think it's reasonable for us to look at Alabama and suspect there'll probably be some adjustments made. There may even be some personnel changes made. I'm not even so much interested in that tonight. You're looking at their schedule right now. They play Mississippi State this Saturday. They're going to drag Mississippi State. We'll predict the game Thursday. They will drag Mississippi State Saturday. Then they're going to go to LSU in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, I guess. And then they'll go to Ole Miss, another back-to-back road stretch there. Or I guess this is the first one for them. And then they'll have Austin Peay and Auburn. Look, we can talk about the individual games. We can talk about who should be starting and who shouldn't. We could talk about who played up to and not up to the standard. We could do all that. Frankly, we did it the other night. And double frankly, I think Tim Watts has got a healthy dose of it over on his BamaOnline.com message board right now. So if you want to dive into that murky, murky crimson water, there's plenty of it to go around. I've delved into some of it myself over there. So I've got thoughts just like everyone else. That's not even what I want to talk to you about tonight. Because truthfully, I think they've got smart enough people in the building to get that sort of thing fixed. Or at least fixed to the degree that they need to fix it to win the SEC, to win a national championship, because make no mistake, even as ugly as Saturday was, This team can still win the national championship. That's not what caught my ear. It wasn't Saturday. We were on the field Saturday. That was jarring, but that's not what's resonating with me. I got two pieces of audio I want you to listen to. The first one is yesterday in Tuscaloosa. It's the usual Monday media availability, and I'm going to play you two of them. The first one is Alabama head coach Nick Saban on what he thought may have contributed to Saturday's breakdown. Take a listen.
You know, you want to have great energy and you want to be loose. I thought we were tight, especially starting the game. Coming out of the locker room, our players always chant. They weren't chanting. I said, why aren't you guys chanting? What's up with that?
No chanting. No chanting there. I was in the tunnel. I can confirm that. No chanting. Does that mean anything necessarily? No. In fact, if you weren't around that team for a long time, you wouldn't even know the difference. I've been around Bama for quite a while. I was around those teams in the early to mid 2000s or 20 teens, and I've been around this one. Yeah, I've noticed that difference. Again, maybe each team has its own unique DNA and whatnot, but it has been noticeable. I'm not the only one who's picked up on it. Now I want you to listen to Will Anderson, same place yesterday, talking about the same thing. Go.
You remember about that moment, and do you feel like it was tight?
Yeah, most definitely. I think we probably just had a lot of anxiety. We didn't have the same intensity that, we had a couple of weeks ago. We most definitely needed that to carry over to this game, but just the intensity was just not where it needed to be.
You know why that?
Probably just, like I said, probably just having a little anxiety for the game, big road game.
This is the top program in America for the past decade and a half. Some of you aren't even that old. They've been on top of the mountain as a program for the past decade and a half plus. We're talking about lack of requisite intensity. We're talking about lack of requisite focus. We're talking about competitive anxiety. Alabama is admitting to you they're suffering from the sort of thing they used to make other teams suffer from when they knew they were about to play them or after they just played them. I've been around that team for a long time. I was around some of those teams in the 20-teens, the Ashawn Robinson teams, the Jaron Reed teams, Jonathan Allen, Minka Fitzpatrick, Ashawn Robinson. Those were the kind of squads where, I kid you not, I'm in Athens, Georgia one afternoon, and they're up 38-3. They give up a long touchdown run in what you and I would call garbage time, and they're fighting each other on the sideline. I'm out in Glendale, Arizona. They are winning the national championship. The game has ended. Confetti is falling down. Jonathan Allen is back and forth with teammates. Why? Not because they didn't win. They just didn't play the way they wanted to. The season's over, guys. He's going after teammates because they just didn't play at a high enough standard. I have watched on multiple occasions, you're talking about competitive anxiety before a game. I used to watch Tony Brown come out of the tunnel shirtless in track pants and just waltz through the opposing team's warm-up cadences. Didn't care. Not an ounce of anxiety to be found anywhere in that locker room. And so if you think that you're pissed off as an Alabama fan, or if you think you're dumbfounded like me watching that from a distance, imagine former players listening to that garbage. That's excuse-making. It's all it is. Whether it's true or not, it's excuse-making because you and I both know if Tennessee misses that field goal or Bama makes a field goal and they win, we're not hearing any of that following Monday. This is so foreign to me to hear from Alabama. I've heard it either on the record or behind the scenes from other teams that used to have to play Bama because that's the kind of stuff they used to strike into you. Not anymore, apparently. And so you see what I'm talking about a little bit when you're questioning play calling or you're questioning designs and schemes, they can adjust all that. If you don't have, like in here, if you don't have what you need intensity-wise, if you're anxious competitively, no amount of adjustments is going to matter. They'll get beat again, or when they go up against Tennessee or Georgia, they'll get beat. And this team, which I think collectively, just on paper, has the chance to be one of the best Nick Saban's ever had, will underachieve. And you'll be left asking why in January, and yet I think they just admitted to you what the why would be. But I say all that, and I'm telling you, they could still win the national championship. So this is kind of me, when I look at potentially great teams, I want them to be great. I want Ohio State to be that way this year. Like I look at the ones that I know are capable, and there are only a few of them. Bama's one of them. And I remember last year being in Indianapolis and watching them come this close in a year where I thought they had no business playing for a title, and they still almost accidentally tripped into a national title. And I found myself saying, good for that team, but next year, that'll be the year for them. Well, we're in next year. And so far, through 6 weeks, I got folks not chanting. I got folks not ready to take the field. I mean, can you imagine going into that environment Saturday night and then walking out of it afterwards and saying, my intensity wasn't there. That was the most charged environment I've ever been in. The numbers came out today. That game peaked at 17 million viewers. It was the most watched college football game of the year by a wide margin. And I got potential top 5 draft picks telling me, just a little anxious. Probably collectively the mind just wasn't there the way it needed to be. I got no time for that. No time. That's horrible. I appreciate honesty. I would rather just not have heard that. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure and leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.